Which high school friend took a path you didn't expect? Probably the smartest guy in class but never actually paid attention or did his homework. Was always sleeping in class or doing his own thing or goofing off. Recently sold his startup for 8 figures and is now back to goofing off. He was 2 years younger than me, absolutely brilliant, and went to Stanford after high school. Died in his sleep from a heart attack at age 20 while visiting family in China. He had an undiagnosed heart defect. So yeah, that was pretty unexpected. R.I.P. Kevin. Guy who sat behind me in hometown. Was a good student, but not an intellectual superstar by any means. After I relocated to Eastern PA, turns out he was in Western NJ. Multi-millionaire, former CEO of a pharmaceutical company. Great guy, super happy for him, but truly unexpected. High school meth dealer and local lunchroom pot cigarette vendor ended up being roommates senior year. 2 months after graduation they both joined the Las Vegas PD. Best friend in high school. His stepdad was a district attorney and apparently they didn't get along at all. This was the Bible Belt Southeast. I met him in the 10th grade as I smoked weed and he happened to sell it. He lived in a trailer park and financed it with his weed sales. My parents hated him. After he graduated from high school while living 100% on his own, he did 2 years of college before getting accepted in a major medical university program that actually paid him to be there. He is now a pharmaceutical engineer living in Switzerland. My parents were surprised to hear that. The most brilliant girl I knew, second in our graduating high school, was also one of the most lively and outgoing people I knew. She could befriend anyone. She was so fun and energetic and thoroughly enjoyed living life. I thought she was destined for so much success. She ended up passing away last year just a couple months shy of her 24th birthday after a lengthy, private, battle with cancer. When I found out about her illness it was already terminal. And when she passed away all I could think was how unfair it was that someone with so much potential, someone who did everything right in life, could die like that. Her death really got to me, and as the 1-year anniversary is approaching I constantly remind myself to make the most of every second of my life, because hers was cut so short. Not a friend, but I went to middle and high school with a girl who went into acting. Became a Power Ranger. That's pretty awesome. One dude who was always a dick to me but hung out with our friend group got expelled in high school for having legit child porn on his phone. He moved cities and I didn't hear from him for years. Turns out he murdered an elderly gay man and is in jail now. One super shy quiet dude is now doing time for blackmailing girls and posting their nudes. I had a crush on a girl that was a real sweet, quiet girl. Not long ago saw her picture on the news for boosting cars. She was not so cute anymore. Our high school had a good mix of preppy kids, and kids from, to put it lightly, rough histories. One thing I really admire about my school, in retrospect, never thought about it at the time, was how little we let socio-economic status affect our interactions. I've mentioned it before, but of my core friend group of 6 guys, 3 have been to prison, 2 are still there, one's a doctor, one's an engineer, one's was an ambassador's aide but is currently a consular, running a consulate. He, along with one of the guys in prison, did not end up where I expected. The guy who ended up in prison was always a bit of a jackass. He wasn't a dumb guy, but he did a lot of dumb things. So I guess it shouldn't surprise me. But still, he came from a well-to-do family, did well in school, just had a propensity for acting out. Anyway, he dropped out of college, was working in a grocery store. There was a domestic dispute with his girlfriend. I had never known him to be the type to hit a woman, but he was a fighter, so I don't totally doubt it, even though he swears he never laid a hand on her. But yeah, had plenty of opportunity for a good life. Beat his girlfriend. Is currently in prison. The other guy, I couldn't be more proud of. His dad was a gangbanger who spent most of his time in prison. When we were juniors in high school, his father was shot in a drive-by and nearly died. The shooting crippled his dad, who to this day is in a wheelchair. His mother didn't speak English and only held down a menial maid job. Not something to support 3 kids. And surprisingly, he didn't like his home life. He crashed at our houses a lot. He got into college and moved away, and I didn't hear from him for 5 years. I heard from him again when he proposed to his girlfriend, his high school sweetheart. He wanted me to come to the wedding, but he also wanted to hang out before then. We got dinner and he talked about how he got a job at an embassy. We kept in touch after that. He got promoted to ambassador's aide. And now he's running a consulate. We're still youngish too. I think he's still got a bright future ahead of him. Couldn't be more proud of my friend. Had a friend that was the weirdest guy I'd met. He'd often yell random stuff for no reason, do every kind of accent, and was just generally awkward around people. Saw him a few years after and he was dressed to the nines, very clean cut, and socially well adjusted. Complete 180 from high school. Made me rethink all my life's choices up until that point, since I was not doing so hot in life. Edit, I'm loving all the people wondering if I'm talking about them, or someone they know. A girl I knew was a strict Christian and floated between groups of friends. Her judgmental side came out from time to time. Once I remember her telling a girl she was going to burn in the depths of hell for having sex. I only know this because I was the lucky girl sitting between them when the other girl jumped over me to punch her. Anyway, after high school, I heard she met a guy, stopped being a Christian and wrote all sorts of oversharing sexual statuses on Facebook. They got engaged and were hooked on drugs. She pawned her engagement ring for drugs and lived above a smoke shop out east. Good news. She's now off drugs, married and has a daughter. Still posts over-sexualized photos and statuses on Facebook. We're good on seeing you in lingerie suggestively laying on your husband. I had a friend in high school who was high achieving academically. He was in the top classes, very nervous and well behaved in the classroom. Generally he was mostly thought of as quiet and the guy very few people paid any attention to. He's serving 8 years in prison for possession of drugs and child pornography. My best friend since I was 5 years old, smartest person I ever knew. She went off to college and got into heroin. She is now serving a life sentence for first-degree murder. There were 2 that really stand out. One of them was a girl who got in a fair amount of trouble. She skipped school, had a bad attitude and was more interested in hanging out with friends than learning. She ended up becoming a lawyer and eventually became the assistant DA of a city with about 3 million people. The other was a nice guy, got along with most everyone. I even considered him a friend and hung out with him on occasion. He came from a great family and while he didn't get the best grades, he was good at things like fixing cars, so I assumed he would end up going into that field. Instead, he started a career in drinking. By the time he was 30 he had been in jail several times, in rehab a couple of times, had been arrested numerous times, had 2 restraining orders on him from former girlfriends, and had burned so many bridges with his family they had given up on him. Now in his mid-40s, he still lives in that same town. He looks like he is in his 60s, is on disability, and likely doesn't have much of a future as he continues to drink himself away. Not me, but my cousin in the UK went to school with Dev Patel. Dev was apparently super into the drama club, and people thought he was too over the top, and kind of a tryhard that would never actually be a professional actor. His success was definitely unexpected for people he knew back then, based on what my cousin said. The prettiest girl in high school, who was always nice to me, I was a bullied child, overdosed on heroin 2 years ago. I still cry for her. A friend of mine is a talented artist with a deep passion for video game design. He worked on projects for indie devs all through high school, and I thought it was certain he would quickly become an artist for some dev studio soon after. He now works as a furniture salesman. Not really a friend as I didn't run with their crowd, but like at every school there was the really popular girl. Pretty, cheerleader, everybody liked her, wealthy parents, etc. I'm sure you knew someone like that yourself. Just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago she got arrested and charged with several felonies for possession of meth, prescription painkillers, and a large amount of weed. I moved away from that town years ago and haven't really kept in touch with a lot of the people from there. However, a buddy of mine sent me a picture of the report in the newspaper and was like, remember her? Definitely didn't expect it, that's for sure. Girl in my high school was a terrible human being, selfish and totally self-absorbed. I couldn't stand her. One of the shallowest, nastiest people I knew. 20 years later she sacrifices her life trying to help save 3 children, unknown to her, from drowning in a rip current at a local beach. Elizabeth, the badass party chick. She was a brilliant and quietly rebellious type. She was pulling and getting away with shit that most of the guys branded as troublemakers in school could only dream of, because she had the sense and savvy to not show off to the world. She wasn't doing shit for the attention. She was just doing it because that's what she wanted to do. So smoking, heavy drinking, some drugs, staying out all night, whatever. She could outdo anyone else. Anyway, a little over 10 years later I caught up with her and found out she was a triathlete and overall health nut. A lot of them. I don't know if there was something in the water in our town. A lovely girl in my class had severe anorexia, to the extent she had to repeat the year. She was strikingly pretty, with the face of an angel. Always wondered if she felt self-conscious and grew obsessed about her looks because it was what people valued. Nobody made the same fuss about her good grades or niceness. She is now morbidly obese, couch surfing and pretty much always wears the same big brown coat and tracksuit pants. Was shocked to see her go from one extreme to the other. Still really nice, hope it works out for her. Another high achiever in our class is now a traveling musician and nudist. She dropped out of engineering and just travels from festival to festival as a concert goer, dressed as a barefoot rainbow fairy. Self-funds by offering tarot readings, spells, palmistry. Lived by the creek for a while. Has a Pomeranian. When I was 10 I sat next to the sweetest boy in our class. All the other boys I had sat next to in junior school were mild asshats. I remember I lent him my Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory VHS and he lent me the Muppets Take Manhattan. We went to different high schools when we were 12. I heard that at 16 he had been arrested for armed robbery. I still can't believe it. What the hell happened to that kind and gentle boy between 12 and 16? Dude was the typical cocky douche to most people, but we got along well enough. We're 25 now, and he moved to Vegas, went bald, put on about 100 pounds and is dating a 60-year-old stripper. I homeschool, so I guess I didn't see my brother going down the path of hip hop. James Allen McCune. Chubby. The loser of the group. Had no confidence. Wouldn't talk to girls. Spent his time trying to play punk music. Now he's in Hollywood. Was the male lead in the Blair Witch reboot. A well-off, innocent-looking white kid from my high school ended up covered in face tattoos and brandishing guns on the internet. Turns out, he joined a Mexican gang on the outskirts of our town. He ended up getting shot to death in a confrontation with another gang. She was voted most likely to succeed in our year, had plans on being a doctor, really smart. Ended up staying in state for college, pretty rural, limits options. We lost touch. She got married. She's a stay-at-home mom and a trophy wife, basically, traveling the world on her doctor husband's dime. Not a bad life. Certainly, but not expected. Edit, I didn't mean to imply she's a gold digger or anything critical like that. She was the leader of clubs and teams during high school, and very pretty, and competitive with grades, so it's just interesting to me that so far she has been less ambitious career-wise. She's definitely still very happy. Friend died no since freshman year, 9th grade, of HS. Home life wasn't stellar. Abusive step-parent, control freak mom, etc. Joined the Marines to escape. Met someone, got married, had like 4 kids and was expelled from service for medical reasons. Got divorced, dad got full custody, so she moved back home and bounced around in a travel trailer with a younger boyfriend, who stole his boss's business credit card before they bounced to Lord knows where. Last time she surfaced, it was on Facebook and she was selling their wedding rings he'd purchased using the stolen credit card. It's a real shame how things went. She'd done well in the Marines and even in the early years of her marriage. Not sure what the tipping point was. She was furious about losing custody, but she wanted to uproot 4 kids from their home, school, friends and add side of family to bounce around in a 13-foot travel trailer living off her $650 in disability. She absolutely refused to acknowledge how horrible that would have been for them. There was this guy who bullied me and destroyed my self-esteem on a regular basis. He became a really successful vegan chef, has his own restaurant, cookbooks, has been on talk shows to promote his stuff. The happy surprise? One of the girls I went to school with kind of came from the wrong side of the tracks. Nice kid, but her family was known to be pretty trashy, and she dropped out of community college to be a stripper. A few years later, she got her shit together, and now she's a corporate lawyer. The not so happy surprise? Dude was brilliant. He came from a wealthy family, he was good at sports, he was a hilarious person to be around. Even at the time, it was no secret that he had his demons, but he was just so damn smart that it seemed like if he could grow out of his adolescent angst, everything would be fine. Again, wealthy family. Bright. Good looking. Bro didn't exactly have to hit a home run to do okay in life. I believe he's working part-time at the grocery store now, but he may have gotten fired again. Or he might be back on disability. Or maybe he's working at Pizza Hut. It's always hard to keep it straight, because he doesn't tend to hold down any particular job for long. Honestly, if he weren't such a nice person, there might be a hint of schadenfreude there, but as it is, it's just tragic. He really was brilliant, and he really was a wonderful human being, but there weren't enough advantages in the world to save him from himself. Very plain looking nice but quiet girl I went to high school with. Never would had thought she would go on to become one of the top 20 supermodels of all time. Married a very famous rock star. She's a sweetheart. One of my dearest friends and checked in on me almost daily for close to a year when I lost my daughter.